time to hear from our next panel, who are here to discuss the evolving work culture in the era of hybrid and remote working. Here to talk about culture, communities, and spaces that shape us, please give a warm welcome to our panel speakers, to be led by our moderator, Wendy McEwen, VP for Transformation, Chief of Staff of the Office of the CEO at PropertyGuru Group. We have also Alex Bentley, digital creator, originally from the UK, but currently based in Thailand. Chelsea Perino is back, Managing Director, Global Communications, the Executive Center, Hong Kong. And Kirsten Thorstingen, Partner at Portman Investments from Singapore. Come on up. We also have Mike Jones, Certified Ergonomist, Wellness Coach, and founder of Pain Free Me Studio here in Bangkok. Oh, I have a few questions for you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm not quite sure how we follow that entertainment act, but we'll give it a go. Thanks for sticking with us. It's really incredible to see such a big crowd here today. This is, I think, the fourth or fifth time I've been to the summit and the biggest crowd I've seen at this time of the day, so thanks for being here. And happy anniversary, Jules and team. And thank you to my panelists for being here. We might just give you a quick introduction so everyone knows who's who. So Chelsea, in one sentence, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, great to be back again this year, and I do agree, bigger crowd, which is excellent to see. My name is Chelsea Perino. I'm Managing Director of Global Marketing and Communications at the Executive Center, which is Asia's largest premium flexible workspace provider. We have over 230 offices in 36 cities, from Australia over to the Middle East.
And thank you, welcome back, and congratulations on winning the Asia Power Women in Real Estate Award last year. Kristen, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Thorstens. I run my own consulting firm, which is a strategic advisory for startups and hospitality. So my background is actually in hotels. I worked in development for hotel companies for many years, and then I realized that this expertise can be translated to different types of real estate. So we're happy to be here again.
Welcome. Over to you, Michael.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Michael Jones. I'm a wellness coach, ergonomist, and founder of Pain Free Me Studios here in Bangkok, Thailand. And there's where I help active desk workers to correct their postures so they can work and live pain-free.
Thank you. Hopefully that will get fixed. And Alex, finally to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm originally from the UK. I've been living in Bangkok now for almost 3 years, and I create content around Thailand.
Thank you and welcome. So we're switching gears here. This morning we've heard quite a bit about living and homes and branded residences. We're going to talk a bit about offices, because to shape cities, where and how you work and what kind of space you work in plays a central role in how that city thrives and how the communities are shaped in those cities. And we've seen a lot of change in that over the last decade, obviously accelerated by the pandemic. But as employees and consumers, where and how we work has absolutely changed in the last few years in particular. Chelsea, why don't you start off by sharing a bit of your experience, both from the perspective of what the future of work looks like in the context and what the future of the office might look like.
Sure. I think I'd like to ask a question to the audience first, if that's okay. How many of you worked from home before 2020? More than 50% of the time. We have one lucky person up front here. How many people worked at home for a significant amount of the time for 2020 until 2023? Yeah, we've got more hands. Well, but not as many as I thought. So I think when we're talking about the way that the work culture has evolved and changed over time, you can look at pre-COVID and then you can look at post-COVID, because they really are two different existences, I think you can say. Pre-COVID, the traditional kind of work model was there was an office, you went there, you had your desk, for the majority of people, right? Then COVID hit, and a lot of us were not even able to go to our offices for a significant part of that time. Now, I live in Hong Kong. We did not have that experience because our offices were actually always open. But in the rest of Asia and the rest of the world, that was not the case, right? Now we're thankfully in the post-COVID era, but I think what happened during those years is a very big shift in mentality from both a corporate perspective, but also individually about where we want to work, how we work best, and what kinds of facilities and resources and amenities we need in order to do that best. And so I think now we're in a place where we're trying to figure out what that balance looks like. And I think that's really positive.
And Kristen, in your experience, are communities changing as a result of that change in expectation? And do you see a change in the type of office space and or the type of amenities that hotels, for example, want to offer as a result?
First part of your question, change in communities. I think coming out of the pandemic immediately, I think the expectation was that remote work and distributed work was here to stay and it would change everything. Sadly, there seems to be a backlash on that. Many companies are mandating people to come back to the office. But what I'm seeing in Singapore, for instance, is that the Singapore government has realized that more life needs to be brought into the CBD. So now they are mandating developers to include residential and hotels in new developments in the CBD. And then what they've also realized that if you are asking people to work in a distributed manner, then it's hopeless if the offices are not located close to where people live, because if people have to travel across town to sit in a co-working space to work and then commute back home, then, defies the purpose. Second part of your question with regards to hotels. So this is interesting. Before COVID, hotel chains were actually phasing out desks in hotel rooms, especially in resorts, because the general belief was that nobody was using them. Then during COVID, hotels experimented with offering their spaces as workplaces. So this was creating a new revenue stream when there were no tourists. I think that the fact of working during a leisure trip or tagging a holiday on the back of a work trip became a mainstream and an accepted thing. There was, no stigma attached to, combining the two, and the word pleasure became, used quite a lot. Again, with the return to the office mandates that we are seeing, maybe there will be a backlash and this will become a no-go again. I certainly hope not. Ultimately, if you empower people and give them more say about how and when they work, it will increase productivity and employee satisfaction. If you go on LinkedIn and Google or whatever your sources may be, and you read the research about how remote work affects productivity, there isn't any proof that says that being in the office is better for productivity. So, yeah, I think the jury is still out on how this is all going to end.
Great. I'm just going to jump to Alex because there's a perfect segue. Alex, you turned a business trip into a lifestyle and a totally new career. Tell us a bit about how you're seeing the city and the shape of a city and the shape of where people work and live impact the future of the office and the future of the cities.
So I think there's a few things here. So talking about the productivity piece, I definitely think there is more than productivity to be considered when it comes to co-working and working remotely. I think a lot of people who come to Asia from Europe or the US, they're always a little bit weird in some way, and they're usually kind of introverted and do their own thing in a unique kind of way, and they carve their own path. And I think a lot of people come here independently and by themselves. And if left to their own devices, they could find themselves being stuck in a trap of isolation. And they exist in their condo, or they don't socialize, or they work and just eat, live, breathe, whatever it is they're focusing on at that point in time. And so I think I'm seeing this trend more in Bangkok specifically, more so than in Hong Kong and Singapore. This trend towards kind of co-working, co-living facilities, which I think really helps people socialize in a more natural and organic way. I think people can still be productive in that sense, but I think more importantly, it's a way for people to spark natural, organic conversation, find friends, network with people that they wouldn't ordinarily network with, and just create serendipity that wouldn't otherwise happen. So I think this trend towards more co-living, more co-working spaces is great, and offering the flexibility to still be around people, still have that human interaction, but also on your own terms, on your own schedule. To me, this is very positive. I'd love to see more of it in Hong Kong and Singapore. I'm seeing a lot of it in Bangkok and Thailand generally. And I hope this is a trend that goes in that direction, continues to go in that direction.
Okay, we'll come back to that because I really want to hear Chelsea's view on that as well, based on what you've seen in Hong Kong and other spaces. Before we get to that, Michael, one of the key ways that companies are thinking about how they bring their teams together and how they facilitate collaboration is through thinking differently about wellness and the amenities that they offer their teams. And one of the experiences we had as a result of working from home more was that we could create a space that worked for us as opposed to a homogenous space the company provided us. Where and how has what you do changed as a result of how you've started to interact with companies as opposed to being a wellness professional with individuals?
I think how it's changed with me working with different companies is helping them to create more of a digital first human-based model to increase, employee engagement. So we're doing more virtual town hall meetings, more gamifying the whole experience of just being a part of an environment. And I really see that many people are just becoming a little bit more happier in their experience with that. We all love the technology focus, the AI is getting integrated in there, and it makes a lot of us, very, very happy. And so with that, integrating that into the whole experience, companies are really finding that employees are becoming more engaged in everything that they do. And it's really changing the whole kind of remote in-office experience.
Excellent. So coming back to you, Chelsea, we were talking a little bit earlier about community building and landlords versus co-working operators versus hotel operators, and that kind of evolution of office space to be like more community first, more customer experience driven. How are you seeing what your team do and the kind of need to create a future of work where people have that consumer first, like that experiential experience to attract them back to an office? How are you seeing that evolve in the work you're doing?
Well, there are a couple of different ways that the thought process behind what the role of an office actually is has changed. I mean, think about it. What makes an office, right? It's not the building. It's not the ergonomic chairs or not ergonomic chairs. It's actually the people that are in it and the work that's being produced within that specific kind of environment. And so I think this concept of human centricity has really come front and center, especially in the last couple of years. So going back to Alex's point around, why do we go to work? Because, realistically, for a lot of people, you can do your work at home if you want to, right? You go there because you want to interact, you want to be inspired, you want to be exposed to new ideas, and you want people to help you on that journey. And so I think we're seeing a really strategic, purposeful decision-making process, and also the integration of different segments of people and decision makers within an organization when we're thinking about what does the future of the office look like, or how do we want to create the next iteration of the current offices that we're sitting in, or how do we just try and change the behavior and the culture of the people that are in there so that we're empowering them to make smarter decisions. Because I know, at least for myself, and this might sound a little counterintuitive, but even even before COVID, I knew that I was working in different ways in different places, and that would make sense. I work for a flexible workspace company, and I have a global role, so I travel a ton, and so I work in lots of different environments all of the time, but I don't think I was necessarily being very conscious and strategic internally myself, or introspective about what I'm doing in what environment, but now I am. And it's made a really big difference, and I think a lot of people are starting to go down that same pathway, and organizations that are harnessing that realization are the ones that are retaining their employees longer, attracting new talent, and actually, building efficiencies within their organizations. Because raise your hand if you want to do a bad job at work. No one. Everybody wants to do their best job, right? It's the facilities, the strategies, the policies, and the infrastructure that are often the barriers to us doing that. So it's a combination of us realizing, okay, for me personally, as an example, I know I'm going on a little long, but bear with me. If I'm doing heads down work, I don't want to sit in a pod by myself. I will go and sit in a co-working space or a collaborative environment, because I like having that buzz, background noise, energy, movement, because it helps me do that heads down kind of work. Somebody else would probably absolutely hate that kind of environment. So it's understanding that there are different ways of working, and people might be doing the same kind of tasks but need a completely different environment to do that. And organizations asking the questions, what do you do on your daily basis, and what kind of spaces do you need to do that? And employees answering that question in an intelligent way, because they've actually taken a step back and thought about it. So I think that's the direction that we're going, which is really positive again.
Yeah, Chelsea, I really wanted to jump on something that you said there, and it really gave me hope that there are companies out there that are making thoughtful decisions on how to cultivate community and culture. Because from what I've seen, what influences culture in a company is the personality of the CEO. And that even influences how the office is fitted out, even the location of the office, that is located conveniently to where the CEO lives. And I think we've, if companies are going to go down that route of working in a distributed manner and working in a hybrid mode. I mean, all these companies that announced, full flexibility coming out of COVID, we would never go back to the office. What are we seeing now? We're seeing the true culture of the companies come through. They want people in the office. They want to look at at their employees. And then we have other companies. I mean, I take for example, because I'm in travel, Airbnb, where Brian Chesky said, "Yeah, we're gonna always work in a remote manner. That's always how we've done it, and that's what they're sticking to." So, someone said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and ultimately it's the DNA of the company and the culture that is going to drive this.
Michael, tell us a bit about multinationals versus Asia-based companies, going back to what Chelsea was just talking about in terms of the space you provide people and the reason you give them to want to be in the office is so crucial to your ability to attract them and retain them. You talk to companies about this quite regularly. How do you bring that concept to life? What does it look like?
Well, I always like to start with a question. I have to reach out to you guys. How many of you want to be more comfortable at work? Raise your hands. There you go. We got a lot of people who want to be more comfortable. So when you are more functionally comfortable at work, you're going to be able to be more productive. The studies are out there that show that. So when I approach companies, I tell them, this is the curative way of having to be able to retain employees, keep them happy in what they do, and also to watch their productivity shoot through the roof, and also keep those workmen's comps claims down. And that's through ergonomics. That is through workstation design. And so when you were actually fitting the person to their job, using, maybe stand-capable desks, things that are going to help to, raise their monitors to eye level, and also just giving them the proper education about maybe, stretches they can do, chairs that they can use. They're going to offer, proper lumbar support to reduce the risk of lower back pain. These things, really make a change in an office, and also helps to bring people back into the office as well. Because, when we we went back into our homes. Many of us were sitting at the dining room table, at these uncomfortable workstations. So a lot of us were suffering with back pain, neck pain, many, many things. So when you're giving them an environment where they can actually thrive and be pain-free, we're able to retain our employees a lot longer, and there's a lot more job satisfaction.
Can you give us a demonstration of what we could be doing at our desks?
Oh, absolutely. I always educate anybody that I work with the importance of taking a posture break. A posture break is from 1 to 3 minutes where you're actually kind of pushing the computer back and focusing on yourself. So I always say one of the first things that we lose when we are staring at a monitor all day, we lose the rotation of our necks. So I always have people, and I invite you to do so as well, if we could just take a moment and just do a nice neck rotation. Let's take a deep breath in, and we're going to exhale and turn our neck to the right. Okay, in a perfect world, our chin should be aligned with our shoulder. Many of us, that might not be the case. Yeah, so we want to hold that stretch for maybe about 10 seconds. So we feel a stretch on the side of our necks. Then we're going to take a deep breath in. We exhale. We're going to go back to center. Okay, now we're going to inhale again. And we're going to go to the left. Okay, we can definitely feel that nice stretch going on the side of our necks now, correct? All right, we're going to again hold it there for about 10 seconds. And then we're going to come back to center. And the next thing I like people to do on our posture break, because when we're sitting, we have a disengaged core. We kind of come into this kind of C-shaped posture. Our stomach comes out, neck comes forward. So a great way to engage your core is, I always call them a six-pack while you sit. We do knee-ups. So while we're sitting in the chair, we can just simply bring our knees up. And you actually will target that lower abdomen area, that area that's very hard to target when we're doing our exercise and when we're wanting that nice toned stomach. So just sit there and do this from anywhere from 30 seconds to 1 minute. It's going to help to engage your core, your glutes, and just, I say, get a nice blood flow going on, because, when we're sitting for long periods of time, the blood stops flowing and we can become very lethargic, and that's why we become very stiff. So those are two things I would suggest anyone to take on their posture break. And again, posture breaks should be done if we can every hour for about 1 to 3 minutes, or up to every few hours. But just please remember to take your posture breaks, stand up, move around. This is going to help you to be more pain-free and also keep you more productive while you're at work.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I desperately need tips like that. So I'm holding all my colleagues accountable to remind me to do that every day. Alex, you moved from the UK to Asia. You moved from a Big Four accounting firm and from the accounting profession to Asia to become reinvented yourself as an influencer. You used to work in an office 9 to 5 at a desk, and now you live and work in a thriving kind of, center of Bangkok. As a millennial or Gen Z, whichever generation, what do you think the people in the room need to be thinking about when they're thinking about creating destinations and facilities for the future as they considering office and living spaces?
So I think it depends on where we're talking about geographically. So going back to the point around certain businesses requiring that kind of community environment, I think that's more important for creatives. I think if I was in a creative industry or I was starting a startup business, I would definitely want to prioritize that community element, because whilst it's great having virtual scheduled meetings with your colleagues, that's very organized. And if you set up a meeting that's predetermined with a predetermined agenda, you can't create new ideas, new visions in that kind of refined capacity. So I think for anybody who's in the developer space and they're focusing on certain areas, I think Thailand in particular does attract a lot of creatives and people coming in to do startup businesses, even more so now. those are the kind of things that I would consider in prioritizing. I think it's very important that people in those kind of industries, people in the kind of industry where I like the influencer space, these people need to have constant engagement, and being in a completely isolation mode is not going to work. I think not all industries need this. So, I think it's less important from my old background, like in the accountancy space. I actually think that lends itself more towards working independently. You probably can be just as productive and get the work done. It's very clear what you need to do. It's a very defined piece of work that needs to be done. But when it comes to, again, like a creative industry or a startup business where you need ideas, you need inspiration, you need that engagement, then I think you should be prioritizing building co-working facilities that enable that.
Can I challenge you?
Please.
I think that particularly industries like accounting need collaborative spaces. Let me tell you why. Because, exactly to your point, it's those water cooler moments that are so essential. So if you're always working in a silo, if you're always surrounded by people of the same industry doing the exact same thing that you're doing, then number one, you feel totally disconnected from your organization. How do you actually know what the larger business purpose is if you're only focused on your particular vertical and your tasks of that day? But I agree, to your point, you still need those individualized areas to do work. But the benefit of that water cooler, that communal area, is that when you're going to get your coffee, so a trend that we've seen and that we've implemented at the Executive Center is every single one of our new offices has a big, beautiful barista bar. It's not your typical cafeteria. It's a full barista bar with an employed professional barista that will make your soy triple frappuccino with oat milk extra hot, okay? And that's important, it's intentional. And the reason for that is because when you go to that coffee bar, maybe the person standing behind you is from the marketing department and you work in accounts, or maybe it's somebody who is the head of sustainability and you work in, I don't know, finance. And that's an opportunity for you to have those unplanned conversations. And that's where ideas and innovations really start, right? And so I can give you an example from a client that we both worked on, actually, Kristen and I. Standard Chartered Bank is, I would say, one of the pioneers in terms of their workplace strategy. They're super thoughtful about what their offices look like, why they are building them the way they do, what the percentage breakdown between owned assets, traditional leases, flexible workspaces are, and what the composition of those offices look like. And they make those decisions through two-way dialogues with their employees, so they're constantly doing employee surveys. They use the Leesman Index to benchmark and really take a lot of time to think about why they're making the decisions that they make and where they invest their money. And an interesting stat that I heard last week, particularly with regards to the way they design their offices, is that pre-COVID, a traditional floor plate in one of their offices was 70% individual desks. So we're talking about a multinational bank with like 100,000 employees, right? 70% of their offices, spaces were individual desks, 30% communal areas. By 2025, it will be 50-50. 50% communal, and in some instances even more. It will have flipped the other way around. And it's because they are purposefully saying, we need all of these people to meet each other, to talk to each other, to understand what other verticals of the business are doing, because that's what creates culture, and that's what keeps people around. And I think that's one of the other evolutions that we've seen, is that it's not a build it and they will come kind of approach anymore. Field of Dreams reference, if any of you are baseball fans. If you build something beautiful, but you don't educate your employees about why you're doing it and what they're hopefully supposed to accomplish and why it's going to make their life better. So in this case, if you want people to meet people from different verticals outside of their own particular industry vertical that they work in, then you need to tell them that and say, we're designing the office this way so that you have the opportunity to meet the CEO. And you know what? We encourage you to say hi to them at the coffee bar. Otherwise, people will just go and sit next to the same people that they sit next to all the time anyway.
No, you're absolutely right about this. I've noticed a lot more workplaces are doing flexible zones where employees can go. They'll have like different kind of desk setups. So they might have stand capable desks. They'll have couches. They'll have chairs, whatever it may be, that people are coming to collaborate together. Not necessarily that they have to be in a meeting to have, these talks about certain project, that they can actually go to a space that they can actually feel free to speak about certain things. So I'm definitely seeing that a lot more in many workspaces, just giving the employees the opportunity to come together, to collaborate as one, but not necessarily having to be like in a in-person or a virtual meeting.
Kristen, what are you seeing, just going back to your point around flex versus fixed, and kind of the corporate real estate, head of corporate real estate traditionally, like they think about space planning, how many desks they need. Is that changing where they're like more of a mix of owned and operated, like the corporate kind of fixed leases, and then flexible space like to complement that? Or are we reverting back to they need to have own and control all of the space so they can design it according to these kind of designs?
Yeah, very good question. Traditional leases will never disappear, but you're right that there is an increase in the mix of a portion being a fixed traditional lease, and then companies are, depending on their risk, appetite for risk, experimenting with having a part of the workplace fitted out as a co-working space. And then they have two choices. Either they try to run it themselves, or they team up with someone like the executive center to run it. Now, flexible office space in co-working, it's a little bit, it's like a hotel. It's a completely different animal from fitting out an office and renting it out. And that's why I would encourage any landlord to team up with people like Chelsea to run it for them. But we are still seeing landlords going down the route of developing their own flexible office concepts with varying results. Some do it very well. Others, I can give you an example from Singapore, Lendlease, who had their own flexible office operation. They have now handed that over to the Great Room to run it. So landlords need to realize that flexible office is an organic operating real estate, just like a hotel. So yeah, need to have the specialists running it if it's going to be a success.
Yeah, I think your point about partnerships is so important, and one of the other exciting things that we've seen come out of COVID. Before the flexible workspace industry, even up until 2017 when I joined, it was still very much a niche kind of market. It was never integrated into most multinationals' like long-term corporate real estate strategy. They knew what flexible workspaces were. The corporate or the head of real estate, they had their portfolio, and then, for reasons that were usually unexpected, sometimes positive, like, oh wow, we won this new project and now we need to hire 100 consultants. Oh shit, we don't have space in our office for those people. Where are we going to put them? Find a flexible workspace. Okay, we'll put them in there. Hopefully it's close to one of our offices where everybody else on the team works. Or in negative instances, we unfortunately business isn't doing so well, we need to downsize, so we're going to release one of our floors, but we don't have to get rid of all of the people that were there. We have a bit of layover, okay, we'll put them into a flexible workspace. Now we're seeing flex as a very integrated part of real estate strategy, but also from a landlord perspective. We used to beg landlords in grade A buildings to let us in, We would come with our Rolodex of multinational, Fortune 500 companies and, our profitability matrix and everything. And still they were like, we don't really get it. We don't like this model. Is it going to detract from the value of our building? That we don't have to answer those questions anymore. Now it's about what partnership model does it look like? Do we take the traditional lease ourselves and then it's just, we act as an amenity to the building, which is great? Or in a more evolved sort of scenario, a landlord proactively reaches out to us and says, we absolutely need a flexible workspace in our development. And we're seeing this even more so in mixed use developments now, because we understand what a value that is to the other traditional lease tenants and the other, 60 whatever stack of traditional lease floors there are. Would you like to come in as a partnership joint venture model where we collaborate on the design, we make sure that it feels part of the larger multi-use development ecosystem, and it's a joint venture in terms of CapEx and then a profit sharing model at the output. So I think that that's also a really interesting evolution of the way that different players within the real estate industry are starting to collaborate and talk a lot more.
Yeah. I see the clock counting us down. I was going to get into placemaking as our next topic, but we're very much counting down. So just to close us out, Alex, any parting thoughts around the kind of what the room should be thinking about if they are thinking of placemaking or mixed-use developments, because that's where you love to live? Yeah,
look, I think one of the biggest differences in my experience between the UK and Thailand in particular is the prioritization of co-living, co-working spaces. I think there's more of an appetite for this now, especially post-COVID, with people feeling more of they want to interact more with people and mix with people. So that would be my main takeaway, is prioritize those kind of facilities.
Yeah, so I think the takeaway is that community will thrive based on culture and the experience rather than just the space itself. So thank you to each of you for your time today and for being back at the summit, and I hope that everyone enjoys their lunch.